Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Castrator, will you call the roll, please?
Yep. Mr. Young?
Here?
Mrs. Webb?
Present.
Mr. Kleinfelder?
Present.
Mr. Beckman?
Present.
Mr. Gunther?
Present.
Okay, would everyone please stand and join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Dr. Rice, would you like to review the agenda for us?
Certainly. Under item 6, items for board discussion, we'll have four things that we will speak about tonight. One being 10 pieces of policy that we need to have discussion about. One being OSBA policy resolution, and I'll explain that here in a bit. And then 2 matters that I would like some opinions on from the board. One being Board of Education presentations for the year 24-25, something that our team wants to work on to help the board understand what it is that we do in our buildings. And then item D, or letter D, would be a book study that the district's leadership team is doing. I want to invite the board to be a part of that as well. Under number 10, then we have superintendent's reports and recommendation. There are several items underneath there that we'll look at. One being the school handbooks, letter A. One being letter B, the therapy services contract for PT for our district. C, UTS transportation services contract. Letter D, Catalyst counseling service agreement. Letter E, Butler County ESC service agreement, and I'll speak to that when we get to there. F is Ross Middle School and Ross High School social studies curriculum quote, potential purchase, and then G will be personnel. And then under number 11, do you want me to go, or Steve, or do you want to go over that?
Yeah, I can review mine. I've
Okay.
got 6 attachments for approval tonight. The first 2 are MOUs, one with the Butler County ESC for Title III dollars that we received from the state. Second MOU with the Ross Education Association for a retirement incentive that we're putting back into place into the contract. Something we've did for a number of years, and then during the Obamacare years, it was not allowed, and now that that's been kind of discontinued, we're able to do that again.
Insurance.
Insurance, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, insurance.
Yeah, you
Sorry, not retirement,
Yeah,
insurance
yeah, okay.
incentive. Also have a proposal for water heater replacement in the middle school kitchen. And commercial paper and bankers acceptances, those are a statutory requirement that we have to do annually regarding our investments with Red Tree Financial. And then our typical standard 3 monthly reports for investments, cash summary, and general fund. And then we do have a handful of donations on the agenda for approval tonight.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Beckman makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh.
Okay. Mr. Gunther, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Beckman,
Yes.
Mr. Gunther,
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelder,
Yes.
Mrs. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes. The agenda is approved. Let's move on to the minutes. Everyone's had a chance to look over the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the July 18th board meeting?
I can make the motion.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Second, thank you. Any discussion? Everybody's happy? Okay. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelder,
Yes.
Mr. Beckman,
Yes.
Mr. Gunther,
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes. Okay, we'll go on to items for board discussion. Dr. Rice?
Yes, first item for board discussion is letter A, policies. As I've mentioned to each individually, we have some catching up to do on policy. So we will be looking at between 10 and 12 pieces of policy for each of the next several board meetings to get us caught up. One thing I want to stress to you is I promise you that if anything is controversial about any of these policies, I will highlight that in a board meeting so it's not just slid through. I say that because the majority of the policies that we are going to look at for the next several months deal with House Bill 33, which was a sweeping legislation that was passed last year that changed a lot of what we do and what we call things in education in Ohio. I'll give you an example. ODE is no longer ODE. It's now the Department of Education and Workforce Development. So So every piece of policy that has ODE in there needs to be changed to DEW. So that's why I said a lot of these policies, and you'll see several of them tonight, are going to be quick changes as we just update to get caught up with the times. So they are listed in the board agenda in alphabetical order, but what I've done is I've actually grouped them together because many of these are very similar in terms of what they're talking about. The first one that we have tonight is policy BBFA, which is board member conflict of interest. This does come from House Bill 33. It talks about any sort of monetary interest that a board member has, they can't enter into a contract as a district representative. There are some exceptions that House Bill 33 talked about specifically with private institutions. So if you're thinking of like a college, if you as a board member worked for a college institution and we were hiring a college to do something for us, you can exempt yourself from that vote. So again, nothing controversial there. If any of these, I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, but if any of these have any questions, please feel free just to jump right in. Next set of policies I'm going to look at are DJB, petty cash accounts, and policy DM, deposit of public funds, cash collection points, again, from House Bill 33. Districts are now required to accept cash payments at school-affiliated events. Even though we haven't officially passed this policy, we've been practicing this as a district once it came down. What it simply means is when COVID hit, everybody went to online ticketing for everything. In House Bill 33, it said you have to have at least one cash point for concessions or entering into any of your events. And it goes on to say even in the policy that if you don't and somebody shows up with cash, you have to let them in for free.
Right.
So this updates those two policies to reflect those changes. Policy IGD, co-curricular and extracurricular activities, and policy IGDJ, interscholastic athletics, and policy IGDK, interscholastic extracurricular eligibility, and policy JECBC, admission of student and non-chartered or home education. These policies all have to do with what used to be called homeschooling, right, which is a parent right, and that is now called home education. But what we found and what a lot of educators are upset about through the state of Ohio is it pretty much releases the school district from saying anything or doing anything with these students. So literally within 5 days of the start of the school year, there's one form on DEW's website that the parents have to fill out and turn in, and that's it. No longer can we require a curriculum, can we require attendance reports, anything along those lines. This is under the guise of more parent control in their students' education. So these policies all have to do with what was homeschooling is now home education.
So you're saying that no longer will they have to come in and present to the superintendent all those
Correct.
documentation and so forth?
Correct. So what districts are starting to see, I'll give you an example, and knock on wood, it hasn't happened here yet. Let's say we have a student that is truant. I can fill out this form and say they are being home educated, and that relinquishes the district's right to go after them for truancy issues. And along with that, just like, and this is why a lot of these policies talk about extracurricular activities, they are to do the same rights as a traditionally homeschooled student is that's in the district. Before, we used to have to require eligibility. Now that they've relinquished that responsibility for us, we can't check eligibility. So in theory, a home educated student is always eligible. So no one in our field is excited about these changes. We need more oversight with our students to make sure that they're not falling behind. And then the last one, or the last couple, IGCFR, that's a regulation, home instruction. We are rescinding that one because the wording just doesn't matter anymore with home instruction. It's all falling into this home education policies. A couple more, JECBD, interdistrict open enrollment. So we have to, and we've been doing this, we have to send a report to DEW that talks about if a student is in the attendance district of, let's say, Elda, but they are going to Morgan, we have to report those interdistrict transfers, if you will, to the state. So nothing changed there, but again, an update with DEW. And the last one, JK, employment of students, continuing with this home education. It talks about the ability for a parent to withdraw their student at 16 if they were working. The idea conceptually was farms where kids were needed on the homestead to work on farms. Well, this again relinquishes that idea of they have to wait till they're 16 to do that. So again, it's just an update on that home education with those policies. Any questions about any of those policies?
And the plan is, if I understand it, Dr. Rice, that each policy is going to get a first reading at a board meeting and then would be voted on by the board at the subsequent meeting.
Correct. Yep.
Right.
So we'll do a first reading in public, and then the next board meeting, you'll see these exact 10 that will be up for voting on.
Yeah, so that will give board members or the public any opportunity to provide any feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if there's anything controversial, from my past experience, when we deal with like sex ed, those sorts of things, because Columbus likes to tell us what to do with that, I will highlight those because those always rise to the top in communities. I just use that as an example. No, I'm not predicting the future with Columbus, but that's just one that always riles up communities.
Okay. Thank you.
The next item I have is letter B. It's an OSB policy resolution. This falls in line with House Bill 33. Again, as I mentioned, sweeping changes to how we do education. There are hundreds of policies that need to be updated with simple word changes from ODE to DEW, homeschooling to home education. Those are just two examples. So what this policy does, OSBA asks districts that partner with them, asks boards to pass a resolution. This resolution, shall we pass it, will give OSBA the opportunity to go into all of our policies and do these simple word changes. So they will find the policies. They will then provide to me a chart that shows the 100, 150 policies that need to be updated. I will bring that chart to the board. So we'll do that in this format again, and I will show these are what OSBA says we need to update for House Bill 33. So you'll have an opportunity again, first read, to look at it, ask any questions about any of those, and then we would vote on it again. Once we pass that resolution, then OSBA will go into what we call board docs and fix all those policies. It's honestly saving districts a year's worth of policy reviews for all of these changes, because they are a lot.
And there's no cost to that?
Zero cost to that. We're already a
Yes.
member of OSBA. So this is just a service they're providing, because they realized when House Bill 33 came, and they started, that's why we're going to do some policies with some changes for House Bill 33, but they got into it and we're like, uh-oh, like this is all we're going to do for the next year, year and a half. So this is a way that all districts can kind of fast forward the process a little bit.
Okay.
Any questions on that resolution?
Do we need a vote on that resolution tonight, or?
No, I had planned to bring it, allow you an opportunity to read it and
Okay.
ask any questions, and we'll bring it forward.
Okay.
The next part, we're going to do a little bit of an activity with Ms. Doblinger. Ms. Doblinger is going to help me out here. We have some Post-it notes. I've had an opportunity to have lunch with each of you, or have a meeting with each of you.
That's all I get. I got a lot to say.
You get 3, yeah.
No, go.
One of the things as a new superintendent is I want to make sure that what we're doing as a district team fits and meets the needs and the wants of the board as we serve at the discretion of the board. So what I would like to do for the next few minutes is I want you to, if you will, take some time and think about what you would like as a board to learn about this year. And I'll prime you a little bit. I'll give you some examples that are kind of educator speak that maybe if you're not living in this world, you wouldn't know. One of the things we'll do in September is give a presentation on the report card, once the report card data is dropped. Inside that report card is something called a performance index, a PI. It's pretty confusing to understand how they get to that number and what does a 103 mean. So that could be something that the board says, we would like to have a quick presentation at a board meeting to better understand what a performance index means, right? Maybe you want to know, when we look at report card data, we look at comparable districts. Maybe you want to know, how did we figure out that they're comparable districts? Maybe you want to learn about inside millage. Maybe you want to learn about what the 20 mil floor is. So this is just an opportunity for us to kind of collectively talk about the things that the board wants to learn about this year. And then what I foresee happening is Emily, myself, and our team will come together and we will build presentations on a schedule for the next year where we have one of these presentations every board meeting, right? And it's a quick little 5-minute learning session about this particular thing in education. Standard presentations in the district are always going to be the 5-year forecast twice a year. We're always going to do a report card presentation in September when we get the data. But some of the things, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, we are seeing an increase in EL students in this district. Is that something the board wants to learn about? Like, what is that challenge? And when I say challenge, when you look at our neighbors, Hamilton and Fairfield, where almost 20% of their population are EL students, that might be something we need to learn about to get prepared for. So just take a couple of minutes and think about some of those things. And then Emily and I are going to kind of group them and see if we can come up with some common themes. And again, we're not going to set a presentation schedule today. We'll do that on our own, but we will certainly communicate that with you.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
Not yet.
Let's see.
Take about one more minute, and then what I'd like to do is Ms. Doblinger will see if there's some themes there. We'll give her a couple minutes to do that, and I'll explain my thoughts on letter D as she does that. The last item I have tonight for items for board discussion, I wanted to invite you, I left at your table a book that the district leadership team, all principals, assistant principals, and directors will be participating in. We surveyed them at our retreat over the summer to see, we gave them, I think, 4 different books to look at. I'm not a huge fan of the title, Solve Employee Problems Before They Start, but the meat of the book is really, really good. And it talks through the ability of leaders to have difficult conversations and hold each other and others accountable. So inside that book, you'll see there is a sheet of paper in there. And again, I'm asking you to participate. So the plan is, it's like in thirds. 1/3 of the year, we should have 1/3 of the book done. And I think, Mr. Young, I think you took it before
Yeah.
I had this out.
Yeah.
So I'll hand this out to you. My plan would be at the board meetings that are listed, November 21st, February 20th, and April 17th, to have open conversation about just your takeaways. And the district team is asked to think about 3 things as they're reading this book. What stood out to you? How does this section that you read connect to what you do in your role? And then last, does this section change how you lead, and if so, how? So again, just an invitation to participate so we're all on the same page and we understand what our building principals, assistant principals, and directors are doing as well. Any questions about the book? And we will do a book study every year as a leadership team. So, I think we do a great job in education for professional development for our staffs, but I don't think we do a good job for our leadership teams. So we'll make that a focal point as well. That's all the items I have for board discussion.
Okay. Did you want to do anything with the post-its tonight or not? And then talk to us later? Okay, all right. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Rice. The legislature is not in session, so I'm guessing we don't have a legislative report. Butler Tech, our meetings before theirs this month with the.
Right, the 3rd Tuesday follows after the 3rd Thursday
Yeah.
this month.
The quirk in the calendar this
Mind
month.
blower.
Okay, so no updated report from Butler Tech. Did we have any submissions for public comments?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to the superintendent reports and recommendations.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Number 10, superintendent reports and recommendations, several items for you. Letter A, student handbooks for the 24-25 season. As I discussed with Mr. Young, we will have these much earlier next year in the springtime before the year begins. We'll have those in front of you. One thing I wanted to talk about, we had some conversation about this. A big change for policy is the cell phone policy from the state of Ohio that essentially bans cell phones in schools even during non-academic time, which most districts allowed. I spoke with Mr. Martin this morning about that. He's been amazed at how well it's been received. He said he thought he was going to receive a lot more pushback, but it feels really good in the building. So it's going very, very well. He had actually an announcement crafted this morning for the building, just praising them on their work with that. So obviously, some it's a battle, and it will always be a battle, but overall, it seems to be going quite well. Letter B, therapy services contract. This is for physical therapy. It's a contract that we've had in place for a number of years. No changes to that contract. Letter C, UTS Transportation Services. This is an as-needed contract, and with the purchases of the vans over the last few years, the UTS contract and expenditures have went down big time. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but big time. And again, it's only if we need it do we use it. Letter D, Catalyst Counseling Service Agreement. That is mental health therapy for our students and our families. That's no cost to the district. The only time there would be a cost is if we chose to use them for professional development for our teachers. At this time, we do not have that in the plan. Letter E, Butler County Educational Service Center Service Agreement. So this is one thing I did want to highlight, and I shared this with you in the email. EL services provided to support our teachers. It's $27,000 for the school year. Just to give you some statistics on what we're seeing over the last few months with EL. At the end of last school year, we were serving 16 ELL students with monitoring an additional 4 for a total of 20. At the start of this year, we had 23. Already in the first week or so of school, we've had an additional 5 move in for a total of 28. 6 of these 28 are what we call dual identified, so that means they're EL students, so they don't speak English, and they're on an IEP, so lots of challenges there. So I say all this so you understand from a teacher's perspective, this is a new challenge for Ross. These numbers Steve shared with us the other day, 2 when he started in this district. So with challenges come great opportunity, and a more diverse student population is not a bad thing, but we have to have things in place to support our teachers. So this is a new step for us as a district. This provides what we would call an EL tutor. So this is somebody that for a couple of days a week, maybe 2 days one week or 3 days the next, will come in and support teachers in the classroom, making sure that the assignments are where they need to be for these students. It's primarily to support the student or the teacher. It is not to necessarily work hand in hand with the student at this time. I can tell you this, as an old high school principal, there's nothing more concerning than a student that moves in at their sophomore year that doesn't speak English, and you as a high school principal have to make sure that they pass the Ohio State tests. And those are the things that our teachers are thinking about and are worried about. So we wanted to propose this service agreement with Butler County ESC to provide some support for our teachers. Are there any questions over that? Because I know it is something new for the district.
So when the kids are identified, is one of the identifiers if there's a language spoken in the home other than English?
Yes. When they come in and it's identified as a non-English speaker, they will have to take a test.
Yeah.
And then part of the monitoring process is called the OELPA. You have to test them every year to see what their progress is. And when I say we're monitoring, I should have explained this earlier, when we're monitoring, that means those students have actually gotten off of an EL plan, but according to the state, we still have to kind of keep track of them and make sure that they're still doing okay. So those are kids that we've moved off of EL services. So yes, that's part of the enrollment process, is the enrollment office will identify those kids to make sure that we're testing them.
So do we have any idea percentage-wise, how many of those, would you say 28 now? How
Yes.
many of those 28 are actually students who know no English? How many
Well, if they're on a full
speak English pretty well and aren't,
if they're on a full EL plan, that means limited to no English.
yeah,
Those are like a tier 1, like all hands on deck. I mean, we had one at RIS on the second day of school, dropped off and 0 English. And I try to think about, like, empathize what it's like. You're moving into a new country, a new school, and you're literally dropped off. And we were scrambling, trying to get an iPad to figure out a way to communicate. We're talking about communication of, like, how do I tell this young man where the bathroom is? Like, how do I tell him how we do lunch here in America? And these are the challenges. That teacher didn't know that student was showing up that day. We say that all the time, like the big orange buses start to roll, and then everybody's like, wait a minute, they got to get on there. They got to go to school. And we see these always at the beginning of the year. So, again, it's just an opportunity to give some support to our teachers, as this is so new for this district.
Yep.
Any other questions on that? Letter F, Ross Middle School and Ross High School Social Studies curriculum quote. What we're proposing here is to do a 6-year adoption instead of paying it per year. This is a curriculum that's been around for 6 years. Our teachers are fully vested in it. They've created resources. They're using it on a daily basis. What we've been doing is purchasing essentially like year-to-year program. If we lock in a 6-year deal, over the length of that deal, it will save the district $105,000. So we have no desire to go away from that curriculum, so this is the best deal, what we thought we had available. And the last item I have for you is letter G, personnel. That's schedules A, C, and D. These are all replacement positions, sub positions, or supplemental positions, so no new teaching staff positions. That's all the items I have for you under superintendent's reports and recommendations.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the superintendent's reports and recommendations?
I'll motion.
We have
I'll
a
second.
motion?
I'll second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on any of the items that Dr. Rice has outlined? Call the roll, please, Mr. Castater.
Yes. Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Beckman?
Yes.
Mr. Gunther?
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelder?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes. Okay, treasurer's reports and recommendations.
Yeah, as previously mentioned, I have 6 items that we'll be blocking together for one vote. The 2 MOUs at the top. It is interesting that the Title III MOU deals with funds that are filtered to us for EL services, and you just heard a really good summary from Dr. Rice about the needs that are increasing in the district, and we're receiving a little over $2,000 in those Title III dollars to help support those needs. So
Divided by
probably
28 kids.
right, right. So, yeah, so not quite the support probably that we need, but it does help a little bit. The insurance opt-out MOU with the REA, the water heater replacement proposal, and that will be paid using PI funds, not general fund dollars for that. It's about a $45,000 project to replace the faulty water heaters in the middle school kitchen, but we are using PI funds for that. The statutory requirement for our investments through Red Tree, our 3 treasurers' reports, and then the donations. So letters A through F.
Okay. You want to explain that MOU just a little bit for the people in the public here to make sure they understand what's going on there?
The insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is an insurance opt-out program that we will pay a stipend to employees who choose not to take the health insurance. It's something that we did previously, but with Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, we were not permitted to do it. It's now been deemed legal again since they've rescinded the ACA. So we're putting that language back into the contract. Basically, the contract said if it ever became legal again, that it would automatically be reinstated. So we're just doing an MOU to insert that back into the contract, and we do have some employees that will receive that stipend moving forward for opting out of the district health insurance.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion to approve items A through F?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, call the roll, please.
Yes. Mr. Beckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelder?
Yes.
Mr. Gunther?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes. Item G?
You have G.
Item G is we have the opportunity to appoint a delegate for the OSBA annual business meeting. So every fall in November, Ohio School Boards Association hosts their Capital Conference in Columbus. We hope that all of you will be able to attend for at least a portion of the conference. We'll have information coming out in the next couple of weeks about that, some of the details. They have a business meeting. I think Mr. Kleinfelder was our delegate
Correct.
last year.
Very informative.
It's a rousing good time. And so we can appoint a delegate to attend the meeting. We're not required to. They just ask that if you do have a delegate, that you approve that person at a board meeting prior to the end of August and submit the name so they can kind of have an idea basically of who their delegates are going to be. So any volunteers?
Can you give us the dates of the conference?
The conference it's the second weekend in November, so I believe it's the 10th through the 12th this year.
And you have to scan in and out. You can't dip out on the meeting.
One of the things I'll do in the next week to 10 days is send you an email that gives you the details of hotel accommodations, because Gina Burnett, my secretary, will take care of all that for you. You can go one night, no nights, 2 nights, whatever it is that you want. So she'll just ask for that information and a commitment from you for that, because it's a pretty extensive process to
It
get
is.
the better hotel rooms, I'll just say that, rather than a Roach Motel, because, literally, there's 1,000 educators that
Yeah.
come from the state to converge on Columbus, so the nicer hotels go quickly. So we will want a commitment from that, because Gina will literally that morning be on the phone, ready to
All
go.
there, ready to go. Yep.
I didn't hear any takers.
Yeah, I'll do it again. I don't have a problem doing it, but
Okay.
as long as it doesn't conflict with,
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Kleinfelder, very much.
We will submit your name tomorrow. It'll be official.
all right.
Okay.
Mr. Young, can we speak with Ms. Doblinger now? She
Yeah,
has
sure,
some
that'd be
themes that
great.
she saw with the Post-its.
The Val-Sal conversation around whether to continue to have Val-Sal versus moving to a ranged GPA and doing it like the colleges where they have summa cum laude, magna cum laude, and cum laude, and you have groups of students who are recognized at graduation. I know Talawanda has done this in the past. It was something when I was the assistant principal at the high school, Mr. Martin and I talked extensively about, and so that was one of the topics that might be good to research and talk about. A lot of financials, so I will get with Steve and we can talk through kind of the breakdown of the things that you guys wanted to know around the financials. Millage came up multiple times. And then I think the athletic conference things that is still an ongoing question, and so continuing to have Mr. Beck come in and talk about the successes of our programs and how that's working as we switched to a new conference in the last year. So those were the themes that I really felt. And then there's a lot on just students in general, their well-being. So really talking about the programs and systems that we have in place for mental health, for anonymous reporting, for bullying and those things. And so that's a common theme that we can talk about our services and how we help support the whole child and not just teaching and learning and the things that we have in place here. So I will get with Mr. Rice or Dr. Rice and we will work through kind of a plan. Some of this can actually get covered during our report card presentation as well. So a lot of the questions you guys have, we'll make sure we embed those answers into that presentation as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Doblinger.
Great, thank you. The next item is board committees, and I just want to say we do have a couple of board committees. We have one on finance right now, one on facilities. There were some other board committees that I don't think we'll be using in the future. But at this point in the meetings going forward, we want to have reports at the meeting from those committees. The board members do receive written minutes from those meetings, but I think it's important that those meetings be spoken about by the members of the board that are on those committees so that the public is able to hear what's happening in those committees, and that it also provides a way for us to discuss maybe some of those things as a board that the committee might be discussing at the time. Now, the committees certainly cannot take any action on behalf of the board, so it's not like they're doing anything that nobody knows about. That's the board, only the board can vote on any action items, but I think it's important to at least keep people informed about what's being discussed and also give the whole board an opportunity to comment about any of the business that's being discussed in the committee meetings.
Mr. Young, I can actually give a quick synopsis of our recent facilities meeting if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things we had going on here over the last month, we had the high school roof replacement. I think the big takeaway here is we got a full replacement on all the shingled areas of the building, and this was all done through an insurance claim. Mr. Castater played a big part in that. Mr. Huff also assisted in that, getting that done. So it really only cost us a total of $5,000 out of pocket. That was one of the big, I will say, ticket items that we had on the books coming up here in the next couple of years, and with that being completed, that will be a big burden off the district's shoulders, I think. The other, and I'm correct in saying that it has been officially 100% completed. They've gotten all their.
It has. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything was done prior to school starting. That was the goal, and I think
Yeah.
they finished a couple days prior to students
Yep.
returning back.
Yep, I think they did a fantastic job. The other larger item we had this year was the track, which has been completed. That came out really well. I think they made some discoveries that the original track was not installed quite correctly, so all of those deficiencies have been remedied. Other than that, we did also have a presentation from Vista Consulting. Mr. Doug Cox from Vista Consulting came in and talked about the ELF loan program that we had entered into back in 2021. It included a few different items, a lot of renovations at the RIS building, LED lighting across the district. We had some Chromebook purchases. We had some additional HVAC controls that were put into place. The total cost of that program back in '21 was a little over $1.9 million. To this point, those energy upgrades have saved the district about $378,000. Which is more than the total, or which is more than the cost of the annual loan payment of $125,000. So I think that we did get a lot of value out of doing that. The nice thing was the drastically reduced interest rate over the length of time for that loan. That is a program that the state of Ohio is continuing to do. Right now, that interest rate again is 0.25%. So he went over some potential options for kind of like a phase 2, if there are additional things within the district that we have to do. If they are, for example, anything that would generate some type of a savings for the district could be an eligible project. So that was very enlightening to know that we kind of have that in our back pocket if we have some expenditures coming up that we might be able to utilize that program for. Other than that, that was pretty much the meeting we had on I believe it was on the 8th.
It was.
Okay. Thank you very much. Question, Mr. Castater and Dr. Rice, do we have a roof map of each building? In other words, a bird's eye view of the roof, and it shows each section of the roof and the date it was put on and the material and so forth?
Yeah, Mr. Huff does have roof maps for all of the building.
Okay, so we have an idea what sections of what roofs on each building are going to need.
Correct.
Do we have a plan? Do you know?
We
as
do, so
far
we
as
did
what we're going to
replace.
replace and what year it's going to be replaced and so forth?
We do. We did replace a large portion of the middle school, or not replace, repaired a large portion of the middle school roof last year. There is a tentative plan to do a similar project at Elda this year to replace sections of their roof as well. Obviously, the high school kind of took priority there with the insurance claim. But those are the next two phases that we are aware of now.
What fund do you anticipate using for the roof replacement?
Those would be PI funds.
Okay,
Or, as Mr. Beckman mentioned, that could be a potential project that could be done through the ELF program, the House Bill 264. And that could be something that could be packaged with some other energy-saving things if we wanted to go that route.
okay.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, we've kind of got an option either to repair a roof or replace it. If we repair a roof, those funds are not available for it. It's only if we replace it. So
Right.
kind of the whole how many Band-Aids do you want to put on a roof thing.
Yeah.
We don't have the funds to replace it right now, so we can continue to kick the can down the road if that's what we want to call it. But what these funds allow us to do is if we took the same money that we're going to do to repair it, then we can buy a new roof and then take it over a couple years to allow us to get the energy savings sooner
Right.
than later.
And up to a 15-year payback at,
Yep.
like Mr. Beckman mentioned, a 0.25% interest rate.
Right now, one of the things that we took away from that facilities meeting is we need to collectively talk about what projects are needs, and then maybe long-term what projects are wants. So that's some of the work that Steve and I and Devin are doing behind the scenes right now. My stance would be if we decided to go that route, to invite Vista here to a board meeting to talk about the program itself, talk about the 0.25% interest rate that this program, talk about that Vista, by entering into that agreement, if we don't achieve the energy savings that we were supposed to, they're on the hook for that. So those are all things that I've learned in just 2 meetings with Vista. So again, if we identify some projects that could fit underneath this, we would bring them back in front of the board, because we would have to pass, resolutions to enter into an agreement with them to do this work.
And the scope is very limited. There are certain things that are absolute no-goes, like new construction or building new buildings. He was very clear that that's something that would not be allowable. But Mr. Cox, we did the first project with him. He was kind of the third-party consultant advisor that we worked with. This is funded through, and the projects are are kind of under the supervision of the OFCC, so it is a state-run program. So he kind of helps facilitate it, and he's become, I would say, like a subject matter expert in what projects are going to be allowable and get you the most bang for the buck when it comes to the energy savings over time.
Okay, great. Anything else, Eric?
No, that was pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Before we adjourn, let's go around and check in with each board member and see if you have anything additional you'd like to comment on or questions. Mr. Kleinfelder?
Good start to the school year, despite the traffic out front. Haven't heard too many things. The buses seem to be rolling by my house about the same time as they did last year, so seems like everything's going pretty well, so keep it up. That's all I got.
One of the things I think we talked about earlier this year was the school schedule. You know, it's been a fairly talked about thing. We are talking about it behind the scenes. Bill, I don't know if you're ready for a presentation on that yet or not, but I know we're having conversations behind the scene on it, so this isn't a dead subject for us. It just takes a while to get something in place to make sure it's consistent for the future, so where everybody's on the same page and from there.
Absolutely, yeah. And the plan would be, for the public, I will do plenty of surveying of the staff and our parents. I think those are two key stakeholders that we have to hear from. The reality of it is that we have a certain amount of days and hours that we have to have butts and seats, as we call it. And we have to identify as a community what we want to have and what is less important. And right now, we are where we are because of state testing, because of lots of breaks, lots of days for PD. So we have to juggle all of that and figure out where we're going to fit those 184 days in terms of the calendar and what are, kind of to me, what are non-negotiables as a community, like my have-to-haves. So we're going to do some surveying. I want to let the dust settle for the first couple of months. Honestly, I would like to wait until fall to launch some of these surveys. But it's important that we hear from our parents and our staff members. There's I've heard from a lot of community members that don't have students here in the building. I want to hear from our staff members and our kids, parents. So those are two key stakeholders.
Great, thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
Mr. Beckman?
Again, I think we've had a pretty good start to the school year yet. My kids seem to be enjoying it, which I'll take it. But I also want to thank Dr. Rice for his leadership here over the last couple months. I think this is technically, officially your first board meeting under your contract, so to speak. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for everything that you're doing for us. And here's to a continued year of success.
Great. Mrs. Webb?
Just want to welcome everybody back. It's a brand new school year, and it's always an exciting time. Dr. Rice, welcome to your first official board meeting as a superintendent. And I do like some of these minor tweaks to the agenda, particularly with policy and just being more open with like our discussions and our questions. So I do like these minor tweaks and changes. So thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I don't have a lot to add to what's been said, but Dr. Rice, thank you, and I think you've had a great start to your first school year, and we're very happy that things are going well here to start the school year. As far as I know, it's been a pretty smooth start throughout the district, so it's always important, I think, to get things off on the right foot. It really makes a difference in the attitudes of parents, students, and teachers as well. So let's keep it rolling, okay? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Well, we got a second. I don't think we need any discussion. Can you call the roll, please?
Sir. Mr. Beckman?
Yes.
Mr. Gunther?
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelder?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for being here.